Alright, this is a Pac-Man here, Miss Pac-Man actually, that I am putting back together, and you can see, well, I don't know if you can see it that well, but the colors are off. I've tried adjusting as best I can. You know, there's too much red, and then there's too much green. The tube is burnt, you know, pretty bad. Not that there's anything you can do about that, but I figured what I'd do is just kind of show what it looks like here, and then we'll see how good I can get it after a tube rejuve. What do I have to do here? Coin up. There we go. Yeah, so it's super red, and yeah, I could probably try to adjust this. It doesn't look that bad actually when I look through the viewfinder, but it's pretty bad. And you know, you can see maybe it's the brightness or contrast, and again, I can probably try to and I have, you know, adjusted all the colors and everything, but I just cannot get it perfect at all. So I think there's some gun issues, and then maybe the G07 needs to be recapped or something, so we'll check it out. I pulled the monitor and I have it on the bench and facing down because I'm going to put it on the tube rejuvenator, but you can never trust, if I go upside down here, what's going on here, because this on the monitor frame, it says this is an Electro-Home, most likely a G07, and then if you look here, it looks like it's a 4900 based off of where the pots are and stuff like that. And then I had briefly, not really a good cleaning job of this, but you know, washed off, you know, try to, you know, clean it up a little bit. And you definitely want to save these kinds of things, because you see there, it says that it is a 4900 chassis, and you can barely read what kind of tube it is, and we're going to need that information to put it on the rejuvenator. So anyway, can I get the light to come on? So I usually say if these fall off, I make sure that I grab them, and we can start rejuvenating it. I like to start with a tube test first, maybe not rejuvenating it, but reactivating it before I start messing with the caps, because we want to see what the shape the guns are in first. So that's what we're going to do next. Okay, so this is definitely messed up. Can't find anything, even with not just looking at the book, but looking at the spreadsheet and doing searches on these numbers. I can't find anything that comes close to that. So I'm not sure, you know, what that means. It says RCA, and it says made in the USA, which is kind of interesting, because then here on the neck we got made in Japan. The serial numbers match. It's a little bit of detective work. We have Wells Gardner 3399937, and that's also here. And it is looks like a 4900 chassis, which makes sense instead of Electro-Home. So we got Wells Gardner tags there. But really, I have no idea what kind of tube this is. So the best thing I can do is basically use settings from similar type tubes on a 4900 chassis. Most of them do use a Video 2 CRT type. Really your two options are going to be Video 1 and Video 2 for these kinds of arcade monitors. And the bias is probably not going to matter that much, but it's always going to be, the highest is probably going to be 132, and then for some Nintendo monitors you could get down to like minus 100 or even minus 68 volts. So I'm not exactly sure what the bias means. I think it has something to do with probably how focused the beam is, potentially, or something like that. I don't know. It's kind of I don't think it's going to do any damage, you know, based off of what we think the bias is. It just might give us a you know, a bad reading related to cutoff and stuff like that. So anyway, and most of all of the filament volts are 6.3. So The only thing I'm concerned about is video 2 or video 1. Hopefully we don't do any damage. We're going to go with video 2 for this tube, because when I looked at it compared to others, it seemed like most 4900s, G07s, not all, but most have like a video 2 setting on the CR7000. So that's what we're going to roll with. We just got to guess and hook it up. A little bit more detective work, and now I'm getting super paranoid, but you can almost see kind of just written on the top of this tube, it almost looks like 510 something 2XXX. So I don't know what that means, but the fact that it says on the yoke, it says made in Japan, and most Japanese tubes of 19-inch size are start with a 510 number for I think the millimeters. We have our I discharged the monitor, obviously. It did have, I'm not going to show you, but anyway, I discharged the monitor. Make sure you discharge the monitor, but the monitor is not going to be powered up when we do this. But still, while you're messing with it, you definitely want to discharge it. So we're going to turn on our CRT. We're going to go video 2, 132 volts. Adjust our kind of to the mid-level for our cutoff levels. Gun select simultaneous, and we're on CRT type CRT 2. Let's just hope we don't do anything bad here. But anyway, we got 6.3 volts, which is kind of normal. G1 short looks good. H1 short looks good. Cutoff, let's see what we got. Okay, we have nothing here. Okay, we got something on the green. And we have our bias set for 132. And something that I didn't show in my previous video is that what you're supposed to do here is, if you can't get all of them into the cutoff zone with the bias, you drop the bias down until you get a reading, basically, and that kind of shows you like how far off you are, so from the tube spec. So this bias has really something to do more with the spec of the tube, and if you can drop the bias down and still get them in the cutoff, that could mean that your tube is still pretty decent. And because we're at a bias of 116, let's say the spec was actually for this tube was 132, we're not that far off from the spec, basically. But you can see that it says gun tracking is bad. Let's see here. So we have everything in the cutoff zone, but it's bad. And what that says here, let's see if you can see that. Probably not, but it says bad low tracking. All guns adjust to cutoff. Reactivate gun with highest cutoff level control setting. So then our red, or maybe our blue, is the highest. So we would want to reactivate those guns first, because we have that cutoff setting all the way at the highest. And now let's look at our emissions. Emissions look pretty bad, actually. So, this is where, who knows what we're going to do to this tube. We could actually screw this tube up if we go further at this point. But I'm almost willing to risk it. Let me see. 6.3 volts. I wonder if we hit video 1, what our settings are, if they change. They definitely change. Yeah, because now I can't get any of them into the cutoff range, so I don't even know what the difference between video 1 and video 2 is. It might have something to do with voltage. But before we start reactivating things and throwing a lot of current at it, I figured let's go through this and see if it's any different. Doesn't look like it's that much different actually, except for that my bias setting had to be down. So gosh, I wish I knew what the difference between video 1 and video 2 was. But let's keep it on video 2 and go ahead and reactivate the red gun. So we're going to turn our restore. We're only doing reactivate, which is not a lot of voltage. And we're going to press and hold this. Let's move this up to 116. The other, yeah, so I'll come back to that, I guess. Press and hold. This takes 30 seconds here to do this. You can't really see what I'm doing. There we go. And it's good that it's, you know, nice steady current. You don't see any fluctuation there as far as the LEDs go. When the light goes off, you stop. So what we want to do then is go back to our filament volts and just recheck everything again. G1 short looks okay for the most part. HK short, cutoff low tracking. Now let's see if we can actually get this to be a little bit better here. We still have bad tracking. And maybe blue is a little weak or something. Let's see what our emissions looks like. One of the reasons why you want to do the different checks on your bias here is, like, as you progressively reactivate, restore at different levels, if you can't get if you still have to keep lowering your bias settings to get it into a good range for your low cutoff, then you know you're doing what the CR7000, it was some document I read, but it says, like, this is kind of your baseline, so you know that at 116 bias we can get everything into the cutoff range. If we start progressing and then all of a sudden we can't get it back into the cutoff range at 116, then we know we're doing more damage than good, and we should stop trying to restore the tube, is basically what it means. So let's go ahead and reactivate the blue gun as well. Takes 30 seconds, and I'm terrible at filling that airtime, so no good jokes or anything like that. And I'm just crossing my fingers we don't do more damage to this tube, because it could be video 1 or video 2, and we just don't know really. Alright, go back to our filament volts. Still at 6.3, which is good. We got our bias set at 116. Let's go to G1 short. Looks okay, I guess. I don't know why mine always does that a little bit up there by the red. HK short's good. Still bad tracking there. What if we go to level 1? Video 1, I mean. Yeah, still bad low tracking. And it just says reactivate the gun with the highest setting, which could be red, but it doesn't say to do anything more than that. Let's go back to video 2, up to 116. Get these back in there. Okay. It looks like we've gained some emissions on the red and blue guns from where we first started, with them all adjusted, and we're still in the 116. So let's go ahead and reactivate the green gun. And it's another 30 seconds, and my beer is too far behind me to reach right now. Still drinking Voodoo Ranger IPA though, which is pretty good. Probably about three into it so far tonight. And it is 11:30 on a Wednesday. All right, looks good. Go back to the beginning. Filament volts. G1 short. A lot of times you want to, let the guns cool down between some tests, because you could get bad readings if you don't let the guns cool down. If you're like doing a lot of normal reactivates and stuff like that, you kind of want to give the guns a chance to calm down a little bit. And I still have bad low tracking for this, so I wonder if I keep going down. I normally wouldn't have to do this, but I'm kind of playing around just because I don't know if we even have the right settings for this tube, and if anything I change might make a difference here. They're all in the cutoff range at this point. This is why, to me, you need to check the tube on a tube tester first. You could recap this thing and it might not look any better or be able to adjust any better, because the tube itself isn't checking out 100%. I mean, we know the tube works as it is, so we know the chassis is good. We just don't have a great picture that's can be adjusted all the way. What's interesting is that actually after we reactivated that green gun and all of our settings are the same, is that we didn't really gain any emissions at all, which is kind of interesting. So let's go ahead and do a low reactivation on the or low restore on the green gun. And it says low is 2 seconds at 40 milliamps. That's it. It's a little bit better. Oh, look, and our gun tracking is good now because all of them are in the green. So that's definitely progress there. And I did grab my beer real quick. Whoops, sorry about that. So there's the Voodoo Ranger. But yeah, so that's definitely good progress. We had the, sorry about that. Let me see if I can adjust that. Okay. So we had the, that looks good. I mean, that's definitely better than what we had before. Let's go to emissions. Oh, that's emissions high tracking. Low tracking. So by doing a low restore on that gun, we actually got it a little bit better emissions on it and good high tracking, but our low tracking is still bad. And to me, that means red. I say we go do a red low restore function on the red gun. That's it. Adjust them all to cut off. Interesting. Probably not gonna mess with this like too much more. I might go up to a normal, but I definitely don't want to throw a lot of voltage at these guns without knowing like we even have the right settings here. Might as well do green. Just go low. Oh, this is blue actually. Blue. Oh, that's it. Still bad low tracking. And I think I'll look it up in the manual. It kind of tells you, well, it's not the manual. That's the unfortunate thing. It's like a CR7000 or Sencore tech tips that tells you a little bit more, but it would tell you like, okay, what if ever, you know, what does bad low tracking look like from a picture standpoint? If you can't get everything into the cutoff, usually that means there's a contrast issue. You might not be able to get the best contrast adjustment on the picture, and I have to look it up. The fact this is jumping around a little bit is kind of messed up, but maybe bad low tracking, you know, is something else. Yeah, that's weird. All right, and it could be because the guns are kind of cooling off. You get a little bit. You know, it's best to just be patient with it so that you can ensure you're getting a good reading. Yeah, see, our green gun is not doing great. But it appears to me that we're better than when we started, except for the low tracking test. Then for the emissions test, you press this red button here and you hold it for 10 seconds, and if it goes below the red, Oh, I'm sorry, not the red button. Press this button for emission life test. And you can see like the green gun doesn't have a lot of life left there. You know what? I mean, I don't care. Let's risk it. Let's go to a normal restore on green. Throw some current at it. Alright. We'll let those guns cool off for a second and then come back and maybe reactivate each one again and see if, and then we'll call it a day. I'll be right back. I went ahead and reactivated after restoring on normal the green gun. I reactivated red, green, and blue. Oh gosh. Now we got a problem with our green gun. Look at that on a G1 short test. Yeah, see our green gun is jacked up a little bit now, which is bad. Yeah, see, now I have to drop the bias down a little bit. Let's see if G1 short's better now. See, the guns heat up and sometimes you need to let them cool. One of the things is like the older tubes I think have more electrons on the guns than some of the newer tubes. Like the newer tubes, maybe in the 90s and stuff, you couldn't really, you can't really be too hard on them. These 80s tubes, this was manufactured in 1982, usually, you know, from what I've read, have a little bit more electrons on the gun, so you got a little bit more room to burn crap off with. But that doesn't look great as far as a G1 short there. Does say G1 and HK shorts. Readings above the center scale for each gun are good. So they don't have to be all the way, I guess, as long as they're above the center scale. That's what it says right up here. But now, you know, I'm not even on 116. You know, I went down a level on my bias and I can't get anything. I have to go all the way down, you know, which is not good. So it seems like we probably did more harm than good to that green gun at this point. I'm gonna try reactivating it again, just the green gun. See if we can bring it back a little bit. $30 seconds. There we go. Dang. Boom! Look at that. We got good low tracking, and everything's in the cutoff now. And our bias is at a minus 100. Let's go up to 116 and see if we can get it adjusted in there. Yeah. See how, like, we started at 116 volts as our bias, and we can't get our green gun into the cutoff zone. So we know that at this point we don't want to go much further as far as restoring the green, especially the green gun. But if we go down to bias what is that, 100, we can get everything into the cutoff and get good low tracking, which is better than what we had before. Let's go to our emissions test, and we're kind of good there. So did we do more harm than good? Hard to tell, but I mean, it definitely seems like it's better than what it was before. Our green and red guns definitely look better, and the green gun, you know, doesn't have that that much life to it. Doesn't seem like it. So anyway, that's you know, I might just put this right back in the cabinet, or I'll hook up the TPG, the test generator, test pattern generator, to it, and see if we can adjust it without doing any recap or anything, and see what it looks like. So that's what I'm going to do next. But I think we're done at the tube rejuvenator. So cheers. Oh yeah, on sale. I've probably had 2 cases of this already, so it's going down pretty good. Okay, we're back working with this tube. I went ahead and set it up on the bench. It's the next day actually, and you know, basically what I have here is just a quick little setup with an isolation transformer, a ground wire that I hook up to the chassis for my earth ground, and the isolation transformer goes to the from that line filter over to the outlet, and then I have my TPG hooked up to the monitor to give us a test screen. So I haven't done any adjustments or anything like that. One of the things is sometimes you have let's see if I can reach in here. You have different connector types on some of these monitors. Like this one has 2 of the D-shaped, and this Molex connector that I have on my test doesn't. So I just really quickly just used a let's see here, one of these pin extractor tools, and popped the pins out and plugged it directly in. So that way I don't have to cut any wires or anything like that. Just pop out the pins and put it in. If I need to, I'll repin it out with a different connector if I need to for the cabinet it might go back into. So but anyway, so no cap kit yet. Let's just see what our tube rejuve did. And I don't know if it's what this is going to look like, but there's definitely, you know, a decent stable picture there. A lot of, you know, oversaturation of red. So there's a lot of red, but you can see the brightness doesn't look too bad. And so now what we're going to do is kind of adjust this a little bit. So I'm going to set up the monitor to kind of just focus here, and we'll pray that it looks good on the camera. Okay, right so back. Now we're going to adjust some black levels, or maybe the red, and or we can give a different test pattern here. That's way too much red. So what I'm going to do is kind of try to center these all to begin with. Being careful not to shock myself back here. Okay, so that's all centered. A little bit of some waviness there. And if I look to see where my black level is, my black level, I'm gonna have to get my my adjustment stick. So I know you guys can't see what I'm doing right here. Maybe it'd be better if I'm showing it this other way. But basically I'm adjusting on the monitor chassis itself. Like that, okay. That's really weird. I wonder what's causing, I don't know if you guys can see that, there's like a little bit of a like unstable, like a little bit of interference or something, or okay, there we go. That might have been just a loose, I pressed on the, I'm using a positive horizontal vertical sync on this, so still looks like we got a little bit of blue. See, what else can I adjust here? I'm gonna pause it real quick. Alright, I did it off camera because I wasn't filming all my adjustments that I was doing. But beyond the screen burn, you know, I mean, it looks like everything kind of adjusts. There's like this weird distortion or like lines going through it, which is especially like on this screen right here, which is difficult for me to understand what's causing that, and you might not even be able to see it. I don't know if it's, could be the monitor, could be, you know, something going bad on it. But beyond the screen burn, it doesn't look too bad. I mean, it looks like our colors are pretty decent. Not a lot of oversaturation with the colors. I would say some decent, you know, contrast there. So I'm going to put it back into the game and we'll see what it looks like. Okay, it's back in the cabinet here. Let's see there. And it definitely looks better. I mean, I still have some adjustment to do. You can see my black levels, you know, a little bit of red kind of showing down here. I got to adjust the picture a little bit. It's too big and maybe too far to the right. But definitely a lot better as far as the colors are looking and stuff. So I think we're going to be able to adjust this and get to be pretty good. That little bit of, it looks like a lot of that distortion or kind of like a little bit of lines flickering through the picture, or don't seem to be there. So that might have been something just with my TPG connector, or maybe the battery's getting low or something. I don't know, but it definitely looks a lot better than what it did before. There was almost no separation in color between the outline of the maze and the inside. This still looks a little bit too red, and that makes sense because we see some red there bleeding over. So we'll adjust it and then come back, see how good we can get it after adjusting the colors and brightness. And alright, so I spent a few minutes just adjusting it, getting it kind of centered and adjusting the color drives and cutoffs and stuff like that. So on the chassis, I think it looks 100 times better than what it did before. You know what I mean? It's an old tube, and as far as Miss Pac-Man goes, there's a little bit of, you know, blue. I could try to, you know, you can get crazy on this, and you don't know if it's a small convergence issue at the edges when you see a little bit of bleeding. I see a little bit of blue. You know, the chassis hasn't been recapped or anything, but at this point, I think, you know, it looks pretty good. It looks way better than it did before. And it actually, you know, all the pots are adjusting and everything, so I don't necessarily know if a cap kit would make it that much better, because everything's actually working. It's not collapsed, you know what I mean? Everything adjusts as it should. And, you know, I think we're just going to have to live with the way it is right there. So I would say it was overall a success.